Hi Ian, it's Richard Kelly. I just thought I'd give you a voice message because sometimes it's not always easy to put things in writing and convey a message as much. So, look, this is a situation, right? And I don't really want to go into too much backstory and bore you to death too much, right? But the only reason the Scouts issue or the matter of the Scouts erased and came about with me is that I've already been doing petitioning to Parliament, right? I've already been doing petitions to Parliament since about 2013, okay? And lots of important causes, right? And I've also done my own investigation work. You could call it scouting around all England, right? Because I found a lot of serious issues around the country. And I've been complaining to the government about it, actually with the road signs, funnily enough, which is actually where my own scouting tracking skills come into it, right? But at this point, we're not even raising the issue of the Cubs or Scouts at all, right? I found out about petitioning through a friend, and I'm engaging in petitioning, right? And I'm also using it to do investigation to Parliament. And it became clear that our rights were not being upheld and recognised, okay? And besides having to do the investigation itself, I also had to learn all the law of the rights. And it soon became apparent that it wasn't being recognised. It was being undermined. The liberties of the subjects, okay? And I was doing this all by myself at the time, from 2013 to 2019, right? And no one was interested in the illegal road signs, and no one was interested about the government being corrupt, right? And but I was doing my own website and my own evidence, and I was still petitioning the government, but the rights still weren't being recognised. Now, you need the rights in order to do the job. If you haven't got the skills and if you haven't got the rights, you haven't got any powers and you haven't got any authority, right? So you can't do anything because you don't have the power to act, right? Now, since 2019, I lost my driving license, right? And then I've been able to focus and concentrate more on the legal side. Now, everyone was locked down through the pandemic, which 2019, I went to the I was volunteering at the Salvation Army in Murfield, right, for a little while. And then the whole country got locked down. That will even affect the Cubs and Scouts, right? Now, then people start to realise, right, okay, there's something's happening here, right? Now, since then, it's absolutely gone nuts, right? There were people complaining about everything, particularly in London, right? You've got, Extinction Rebellion, you've got Just Stop Oil, you've got Insulate Britain, you've got this Stop ULEZ thing against all the, cameras, right? And then you've got all this Defend Our Juries groups, many groups, right? Now, as it turns out, Parliament and the courts, right, Ian, and there couldn't be anything more serious in the whole country than the rights and liberties of the subjects and the constitution of the country, right? The actual law that cannot be changed, the law that even Parliament cannot be changed, because it's in the 1297 confirmation of the charters, right? And this is where I approach all this from learning about the law. And it turns out none of the top barristers are representing anyone properly in this law. None of the top King's Counsel, none of them, not the Crown Prosecution Service, because when the Crown Prosecution Service was conceived in 1985, they repealed Tumultuous Petitioning Act, so courts didn't get involved with petitions to Parliament anymore, right? So, and Parliament haven't been acknowledging our rights. Now, these rights exist and they're real. And it's taken a long time to find the right books and the right information. A hell of a lot of very complicated and deep study, and I've had to learn everything about it. I've had to learn the whole history of England around this, from, right from the start, from the 1600s, all the way through, all about the writs of privilege, all about the Tumultuous Petitioning Act, all about William Prynne, all about William Penn, all about the later parliaments, and Parliament burning down, the whole thing, right? And the fact is, Ian, right, that Parliament have tried to hide the truth. They've tried to cover it up and conceal the fact, even in their books. We've got Sir Thomas Erskine May, who was serving in Parliament, right? He's written the staple guidebook for parliamentary process. There's an entire section on Sir Thomas Erskine May on Parliament's website, Ian, right? But they've hidden and concealed a chapter 19 from the original book, which confirms that our petitioning is privileged in law. That means protected immunities, right? They've hidden it because they don't really want us to have it. They don't want us to use it, right? They tried to hide it. And it's taken a while. Cambridge Press have published the first edition of the book, which has got this confirmation in it. I've been getting some very old and difficult to get books like William Prynne, right, who was an MP. He lost his ears, William Prynne, right? He had his ears cut off, right? And he was in prison for 3 years, William Prynne, but he ended up being the MP of Bath. And then we've got the Herbert Broom book, right, on constitutional law. Now, Baron Denman was a key figure just after Parliament burned down when they rebuilt it, who made this Parliamentary Papers Act, which it supposedly confers privileges on people. You can get a certificate from the Speaker, right? And Baron Denman did actually do a lot. Now, his son was also a judge, a High Court judge, but these are the Whig politicians, right, who were very pro rights and immunities, right, okay? They did a lot to protect our rights, the Whig politicians. Now, Herbert Broom, who was who had a doctorate in law, Herbert Broom has written a book on constitutional law, and the second edition is advocated by Baron Denman's son. And Denman was the Lord Chief Justice of England, right? So he's Chief Justice. So this is advocated by the Chief Justice of England, right? It's not tosh. So we've got all these books now. And Ian, all of the protest groups in England, right? Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, all these groups, no matter what side you're on, no matter what you support and what you oppose, they've had their rights undermined, which is a constitutional offence, right? But evil justices, ministers and councillors, right? In Parliament. So, and this is what we're on with, because they're allowed to canvass and advertise and go about their mezzanine process for their agency of Parliament, right, without being arrested or prosecuted, Ian, right? And Parliament, the modern MPs, they most of them just don't know. They just don't understand it because they don't learn it. They're not taught it. And they join the main parties who are only interested in themselves, their main parties, right? Not the independent people who want to do their own actions, right, Ian? And they keep the privileges to themselves, effectively. There's a lot of election law, but there's not a lot of books written on petitioning because they don't like it, because they don't like us exercising rights. So this is what we're on with now with the courts, and there's been a lot of cases back and forward, but I've been stuck in West Yorkshire while all the action has been mainly going on in London, right? And you've got people like Chris Packham and people like that trying to get in with it and wanting to meet the Attorney General and so forth, right? But a lot of them have been getting it wrong. I mean, there's loads of campaign groups, but a lot of them have not even attempted to claim the privileges because they don't know about the privileges. They're always going on about the European Union rights with the articles of freedom of expression and so forth, right? Because European law has taken the attention of everyone, and all the real proper British constitutional rights have been kind of forgotten about when they really exist, because the Euro law is very loose and not very well defined. It's more debatable than anything, rather than exact and precise, right? And it's all about jurisdiction. So it's really important, serious, and real, right? And I've been using those rights, and, you know, we've not been having them acknowledged. And even now, Parliament is abusing the process by trying to get people to edit their prayers, change statements, and they're effectively... it's an abusive process and a perversion of the course of justice. So, and this is political politicians from main parties, right? So that's what I'm on with, right? And I've got complaints with the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office, like loads of complaints, right? And when you go on that website, this is really important, right? When you open a case, it's your case, right? When you go on that platform, and when you log in, and when you open a case, you are submitting evidence in a judicial process using the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office in the Royal Courts of Justice. You get a caseworker, right? But that's what you're doing. And when you grab evidence and when you upload it, you're engaged in a legal process through a jurisdiction and authority, right? And that's what you're doing when you petition the House of Commons in Parliament. Now, at that stage, at that point, through my study of the law and through my understanding of the law, which very few people were using or properly understanding, right? There's one or two people, like there's a guy called Graham Moore who did a video on GB News, on not GB News, on Resistance GB, right? You can go on Resistance GB on YouTube and watch Graham Moore's interview. There's a guy called William Keat. He's been a guest on Neil Oliver and a few other programmes, right? But all these really expensive barristers, right, have not been getting it right. And in fact, they've been making money out of the wrong legal representations, the wrong type of representations. That they've been making hundreds of thousands of pounds out of not doing the proper law. And the Prime Ministerian, Keir Starmer, is right in the thick of that. Because he was a trainee barrister out of Leeds University, and then he started doing pro bono work. He was doing human rights. And Keir Starmer, our Prime Ministerian, right, he did not acknowledge the proper privileges of Parliament through his career. He was just defending for profit, right? And then he ended up getting invited to lead the Crown Prosecution Service, Ian, right? And still then he wasn't recognising privileges of Parliament. And now he's the Prime Minister, right? So Keir Starmer is on the bullseye. He's right in the thick of it now when we're on the verge of getting the true privileges of Parliament for the subjects acknowledged. Right, and that's where we are with it. Now, while I was engaged with my cases, with the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office, right, this is where the Scouts come into it, right? And the only reason I've bothered to touch on that is because while I'm learning about the House of Commons and while I'm learning about jurisdictions and authority, I remembered and I realised the Scouts, right? And I just happened to, on the off chance, right, I just did a little bit of research and then I found the charter, okay? The Royal Charter of the Scout Association, because I didn't even know that there was a charter, right? I didn't even know that it existed. So I think because I was looking into because London has got certain liberties as well in its charter. The citizens of London have got certain privileges and special laws, and they can actually get a certificate from the mayor, the Lord Mayor of London. I've got some of these certificates here. I picked a few up, right, for evidence, right, for exhibits of evidence. There are certain privileges that Londoners have got enshrined in law in the confirmation of the charters, right? And the charter of the city. The City of London Charter was the very first real law what William the Conqueror confirmed, well before Magna Carta, way before that, way before the Charter of Liberties. That the very first confirmation is that he acknowledged the liberties of London, right? Which is from the Edward Confessor, from the previous government that he took over, right? And the liberties of London include that Londoners don't have to pay for tolls around England. If you're a citizen of London, right, you don't have to pay any tolls anywhere in England. That is one of the privileges, right? But you've got to prove that you're a citizen of London. You prove that you're a citizen of London by the certificate that you get from the Lord Mayor, right? You've got to be a London citizen. And there's a lot of argument currently there for that with this ULEZ charge zone and the congestion charge zone, because it could be illegal, right? But that's down to Tony Blair's government in 2002 and Ken Livingstone. And I'm not going into that at the moment, but I'm on with our laws in England, our foundational, basically what this country is in law. You know, what are the laws of this country and what is it founded on? And there are certain things that cannot be changed, and if you do, it's illegal and they can't be repealed, right? Because it's what makes us this country, right? And that is what all of this is centered around, okay? And it's very important, because without those laws and rights, we can't do anything, okay? If we don't prove and uphold these rights, Ian, right, there aren't any powers, and there isn't any. We don't actually have a democratic model that people can engage in and use fairly to oppose what's going on and have a say in the future of the country, right? Now, once I found about London charters and so forth, I must have ended up finding this Scout charter. I don't exactly know what I was searching for or why, but I ended up finding the Scout charter, right? And because I was specifically learning about jurisdictions, that they exist, and there's different jurisdictions, and they're created through charters, right? Like every police force has a jurisdiction, but only to that county, right? It's got a jurisdiction to the county, right? That's why police forces can liaison with each other, but they're constrained to their own county. It's their jurisdiction, and courts have circuits, right? And this is all from learning about Parliament as well in the House of Lords, right? Now, I found that charter, and I was interested in it, and I read the charter, and I understand it legally because I'm doing a lot of complicated technical stuff around Parliament as well that not a lot of top lawyers are acknowledging, and they've actually been undermining it and also lying about it, right? And the Scout Charter creates a jurisdiction. It's a jurisdiction to operate in, like the police, right? And it's a global jurisdiction of the whole world, right? So it's for the whole planet. So now the thing with that jurisdiction is that next to the 1688 Bill of Rights, right to petition, which any subject can take up, right? Any subject has the right to petition the king, right, and have privileges. So they've got a jurisdiction and authority. Beg your pardon. They've got a jurisdiction and authority when they pick a pen up and when they write the King's Writ, right, to either Houses of Parliament or the King. So that is a jurisdiction on its own. So therefore, we don't really need another jurisdiction as long as we get that jurisdiction fully acknowledged and recognised and applied to effect, which the courts haven't been doing. The courts have not been recognising it, right? Now, so why would I be bothered or interested in the Scout Charter? Well, the thing with the Scout Charter is this, right? It's actually global jurisdiction around the whole world, which if you just petition the Houses of Parliament, it's only really it's only in England, right? The Houses of Parliament House of Commons or House of Lords. Although you could say that if you're petitioning the king, and if the king's got different charters, maybe the king's got jurisdiction over the Commonwealth and the territories and Australia and so forth. But the Scout Charter doesn't actually say that it's got the jurisdiction of the Commonwealth or the territories or, Scotland, Ireland or Wales, right? Although Canada and Australia are part of the Commonwealth. The Scout Charter, right, Ian, it's a global jurisdiction in the whole world, right? So it's actually anywhere on the planet, unless you want to say that, well, when they say that, they only mean the territories, right? But it's granting global jurisdiction, right? So you can act on behalf of the Privy Council anywhere in the world. So that effectively is diplomatic immunity, because any government official who goes on official government business to America gets granted diplomatic immunity, right? But that's not a Commonwealth country. So what is a jurisdiction? What is authority? How can someone give you global jurisdiction if the King's only got Australia, Canada, and so forth for Commonwealth countries? If King Charles is not the King of America, how can you have a jurisdiction in America if it's not Commonwealth, right? Well, you can. That's when you get into the area of diplomatic immunity on the personage, right? If you're acting under that jurisdiction, you can claim it. That will fall under diplomatic immunity because you're acting through a jurisdiction of your country overseas, right? Which is legally acknowledged, right? Another thing in that charter is you can work with any department of the government, okay? Like the police of any county, or MI5, or the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office, or Parliament. But I can petition Parliament anyway, or go see an MP. I can start a case with Judicial Conduct Investigation Office anyway, because I've got a right to anyway as a citizen. I can complain to the police and get them to investigate something anyway. But if you're doing it through the Charter, you're not just doing it as a citizen, you're doing it as an officer. Now, this is the thing, right? Ian, right? I am sworn in as a Scout. And that is what gives you the jurisdiction and office. And this is the thing, right? Either I am or I aren't, and I am. Now, I have not just gone about this aimlessly and willy-nilly and kind of like carelessly or in an amateurish way, right? I am sworn in as a Scout, it is an oath of supremacy, right? When you go into court, Ian, right, and you take an oath, it is not the oath of supremacy. It is only an oath to tell the truth, right? And when it comes to oaths for police officers, okay, and judges, and any other, like the army, right, and so forth, right? The Scouts is relatively new still. It's only since 1907, right? So it doesn't go back to medieval times. It's not old and ancient, right? It's not like Belted Knights of the Realm, and it's not like, it's not as old as, Justices of the Peace, right? And really, in fact, the police aren't that old. The police only go back to the 1830s, 1840s, right? Other than having a sheriff and constable, because they didn't have police forces until the early 1800s, right? So the police force itself is new as well. Also, the Crown Prosecution Service is new. The police just hired lawyers, hired barristers. They didn't have an organisation, the Crown Prosecution Service, right, till 1985, right? So the Scouts is relatively new still to 1900. It's not that old, right? So it was a relatively new invention. Now, this is the thing, right? Baden-Powell, his brother, they were lawyers, so they were interested in law. They were interested in law, they were interested in constitutional law and rights. So they created something very intelligently and brilliantly. The whole concept and idea for the Scouts is no joke. It's no messing around, right? They created a jurisdiction under the Privy Council, and they wanted to get young people sworn in, right? And this is the thing. Baden-Powell had 5 distinctively different knighthoods. He was a knight of 5 separate different orders, right? Which is quite a lot. 5 different knighthoods for 5 different orders is quite significant. So he was very interested in knighthoods. It was a very primary subject for him. He had personally 5 different knighthoods, right? And really, what he's done, really, Ian, is he's created another order, right? Because the members of Parliament, the elected members of Parliament, right, in the early parliaments, they called them Knights of the Shire, right? You had 2 knights from each shire or whatever, right? They were Knights of the Shire, but they were only in office while they were elected and until they get new ones elected, right? But they're still knights. They're still Knights of the Shire, and you didn't actually have to take an oath until I think, according to William Prynne, they didn't have oaths for Parliament until Queen Elizabeth I, following Henry VIII, because of the Popish plot and all to do with allegiances to what religious leader are you, the Pope or the King, right? Because when they broke up with the Catholic Church, there was a lot of allegiance issues, right? And that's one of the main reasons why they created the oaths for Parliament, right? Because they only really had judicial oaths. This is according to William Prynne. You can check that out. You can verify that yourself, right? If you want to read some William Prynne books, right? So MPs are actually Knights of the Shire. They don't call them Knights of the Shire anymore or refer to them as, but traditionally they get the Knighthood of the Shire, right? Belted knights who were knighted by the king are for life, right? That's a belted knight because it's fastened on, right? It's permanent, right? It's a belted knighthood, right? Now, lots of people, there were so many people getting knighthoods, right? If you look through the history books, like, there's blacksmiths and merchants and loads of people, right? In fact, the king could command someone to kneel and accept the knighthood, right? They were knighting people and sending them off to the Crusades, Ian, right? So they made an act of law. There's an act of law. You can go check this out, right? This is fact. There's an act of law that prevents the king from forcing people to be knights, right, who don't want to be, okay? The king was going round making people be knights in service, and if they turned it down, right, then if they refused it, Ian, they could get arrested or put in prison. So there was an act of law made just to make it so people didn't have to accept knighthoods. Now, if you look at the sheriff at the moment, right, the police chief, they stay in for years, like 5-10 years, right? We can't get rid of them, right? The police chiefs now serve for a long time. Now, if you look on, Google or wherever, look at the sheriffs, right? They're all knights. They're all knighted, all of them. But they only serve a year to 2 years, Ian, right? So if you look back, the list of sheriffs, of knights, goes on and on and on because there's so many of them, because they're only in for a year at a time, right? So, so it was quite common. It was quite a common thing. And there was a hell of a lot of justices of the peace as well. And also the jurors, the jurors' oaths, when you're sworn in for a juror, is like a lot of them, it was a main thing to have to uphold the rights and liberties of the realm. And now jurors, and the oath of the juror is not an oath of supremacy, it's an oath to try the defendants. But they no longer have a requirement to know the rights and liberties of the subjects when the jurors are meant to know the rights and liberties of the subjects, so they can uphold the rights and liberties independently, regardless of what case is being brought before them, right? And that's another serious issue. So this is the thing. So they started cutting down a lot on knighthoods, and they also started cutting a lot down on jurors as well, because some jurors serve permanent for life. The jurats were sworn in permanently for life, because they had counsellors and jurats, as well as the juries who were in the circuits, the circuit courts that were higher up, the people they picked at random. They actually had permanent jurors as well, who were at the hundreds courts, right? So this is the thing. Now, by the time we get to 1900, okay, and 1900 is the time when they built that Victoria Tower on our scheduled monument, right? And there's a big story to that, which is why I want to protect the monument, right? And I've sent you a video link to a video talk that I posted in one of the Facebook groups, that if you can click on the link, but I don't have a spare copy of that video. It's on the website, right? On one of the Ancient Stone websites, which I've put the link. I tell the story about the ancient site and why I want to protect it, and the links. Why is it connected to the Scouts? What association does it have to the Scouts, other than being like the exact perfect shape nearly of the Scout logo, and the whole connection between the movie industry's kind of spin-off joke between Baden Powell and Sir Patrick Stewart, and the whole Enterprise adventuring out into the universe, right? So there's tie-ins with that, which I'm not going to go into at the moment, right, because that's a separate thing. But effectively, right, Baden Powell, he's all about knighthoods. He's got 5 different knighthoods. He's all about knighthoods, right? And he's all about the law, because his brother was also a King's Counsel as well. So they're really, really up on, keen and savvy on the law and the Constitution, and he's a guy with 5 knighthoods, right? So it couldn't be more hot on the subject and the topic of what he was intending to and wanted to create, right? So this is where we come in with creating the Scouts. And what is the point in getting sworn in, okay? And what is special about it and different about it to a police officer? Well, you might say that the police are there to protect and serve, right? But if you look at the oath itself of the police officer, right, he's only there to uphold the law, right? He's there to uphold the law and make citizens comply with the law. There's no requirement to help anyone. Although, obviously police officers, if someone's in need, they're going to voluntarily help them or whatever. But there are certain things like, there are certain things you say. Some people say police officer, can't help you and give you a lift home or tow you a car. He's not insured to drive your car or move it as long as it's like out of danger. He has to call a pickup truck, or he doesn't necessarily have to push someone's car up a hill with him or anything like that, right? Neither does the Justice of the Peace. They've got to keep the peace. They don't have to help anyone personally in their own things or problems or issues, right? Now, the Scouts Charter and the Scouts Code and the Scouts Oath does actually, it is about helping people, helping citizens. And that is the unique office and unique thing with it, which is different to a police officer. And the Scouts, not restricted to a county. It's not restricted to a shire. It's global jurisdiction, right? It's the whole world, right? And actually, there are quite a lot of Scouts that I can't remember the figure exactly, but I've just put it on my website a few days ago, right? But there was something like, something like 400,000 or something around that number, right, compared to police officers, where I think there was only something like 150,000, but that figure's not exact. I'm just saying a general comparison. The general comparison is that there aren't that many police officers compared to scouts, right? Not sworn-in scouts. Now, you might have different figures because you're going by the ones that you're teaching at the moment, right, who are going on all the adventures and, activities, right? But we're talking about people who are actually sworn in, like a police officer sworn in. So this is the thing. And the army is even less. The actual military, there's less serving soldiers than there are police officers, right? A very small fraction compared, about, at least I think it's only about a third or something. I think it's less than a third. So the scouts actually have a larger body in the country who have been in contact with the scouts or sworn in than police. And then the army is even smaller, right? But yet the jurisdiction of the scouts is higher than police, really. Because it's under the Privy Council, under the Charter, right? Now, this is the thing, right? Now, the Scouts, right? You're training children. They're learning, right? They're learning skills. Now, obviously going to help someone, because whenever you learn something or do something, to do it, right? If you're learning how to, make a radio receiver from scratch, a radio transmitter or something from scratch, or doing electronics, right? No one is doubting all these skills, right, that the Scouts and Cubs and so forth are learning, and all the rest of the skills, right? No one's doubting that. But they're not just learning them for themselves, right? It's not like a swimming badge. If you want a swimming badge just for you, for an achievement, right, then you're just helping out yourself because you've got an achievement, right? If you're going on a scouting holiday and going camping and building bivouacs and doing tracking, you're having a ball of a time. You're having a hell of a time. If you enjoy it and you're keeping fit and it's exciting and you're learning stuff and you're getting all your arm filled with badges, right? And you're getting to handshake with the Duchess and the Prince and King Charles or whatever, and your arms are getting filled with badges and you're learning all these things, but you're not learning them, right, for you. You're only learning them, supposedly, the whole point is that when you encounter someone who needs help, you are skilled and equipped to be able to help them because you are trained in many different things, right? You ain't done it for the badge or award. You get the badge because you've learned the skill. So then you've got a skill and you are able to assist people, right? And the oath, therefore, is to help people, and you're trained to do that, right? Now, while, scouts are learning these things, they are helping people, but they're learning how to help people, right? So while you're at scouts, all of the good work the Scouts do for scheduled monuments, for archaeology, for art, for electronics, for science, for whatever, that's not, right, the duty and work of the complete Scout. This is learning how to do it. So you're helping a hell of a lot of people, right, through learning how to do the skills, right? So you're having an absolute whale of a time, a ball of a time, and you got your volunteer scouts who are, like the chief scout and the head scout and the staff, good, volunteering to teach the children, but it's not there for the existence of the school, right? Like university. University is learning, right? But the point in going to uni isn't to have a ball of a time at uni with the lecturers, right? Giving lectures and learning science and English and maths, right? And getting photographs going out in Oxford or lined up with, with your hat on, right? That's the learning phase, right? So it's like police college. So it isn't like it's police college, right? You're volunteering. You're a volunteer for police college. And you're having a hell of a great time doing it, and they're learning loads of skills and helping loads of people, because they've got to help people, because you've got to have someone to to test on, right? It's like at university. When the university are doing mechanics projects, they might invent some brilliant new engineering things, right? And it might help the world. Some of these chemistry departments in the university are doing groundbreaking work around the world, but they're only learning how to do it, and after they graduate from university, then is when they go and do it, like when a police officer leaves police college, right? And like a squire knight, a knight cannot be a knight until he's been a squire, right? So as far as I'm concerned, the volunteer scout leaders, Carl Hankinson or whatever and so forth, are only like, it's a university, it's a police college. That is the school, right? Because the whole point when Baden-Powell his whole vision is to create the finished product, right? That's ready for service. The finished product is the scout who's finished. But the whole point of it is being sworn in, because it's not, you don't have to get sworn into college or university, although you get a diploma when you've finished. But this is the thing. The Scouts is a jurisdiction. It's based on a model like judges and police officers and sheriffs, because it is an oath of supremacy. Jurors don't, like I said, a juror does not take an oath of supremacy, right? It's different. So, and it's also religious as well, because it's also duty to God. So it's, and the thing about the Scouts is when someone's young and when someone is innocent, right? Because a lot of these people, a lot of these cubs and Scouts who are sworn in, do it when at an age when they're not even accountable to the law, right? You're not accountable to the law until you're over 10 years old, right? So they're not doing it for the jurisdiction and authority, because they don't understand the law. At that age, they're not accountable to the law. At that age, they're not arrestable. So they don't really properly understand the law, because they're not old enough to understand it. So they're not getting sworn in, and they're not entering the jurisdiction in order to achieve it or for any reward at all. They're doing it because they want to volunteer to do it, because they choose to, right? Freely. And that is how it's meant to be. And you can't be forced anymore to do it, because there's a law. What you cannot be forced to sworn in against your will, right? So it's the age thing's important, because it's not until you get older and learn and realise your power and authority, right, matures over time. Because when you start at the start of it, you don't really understand it properly, right? And this is the whole thing, right? When they first started the police force in London, people were paying to get become constables. If you look at the law, when they were starting the police force off, they were actually offering people to get sworn in as police officers, but they paid, they were paying money. They were paying money to go and take the oath and get sworn in as police officers, right? In London, you can go check that up. That's fact. I've been reading about it, right? So it's important. And actually, unless, you're saying that there's someone putting false information out and misleading us all, right? I checked on the internet. I made the effort to check. I didn't just do it aimlessly, right? I wanted to learn and find out. It said that Baden-Powell wanted his scouts to be scouts for life and follow a chivalrous code, which is that's what it is. He doesn't say that it's a chivalrous code if it's not chivalry, right? So, and the fact that his brother was a King's Counsel, a lawyer, and he was very savvy on the law. They knew exactly what they were creating and building, right? Which really is an order. It is an order, like the Knights of the Garter or the Knights of the Bath, really. And it has got its own charter under the Privy Council, right? So that's what it is, whether you like it or not. And, you know, I don't think the lawyers currently who are doing pro bono work for the Scouts Association actually probably understand it properly, because we've had a hard enough time, Ian, right, trying to get the Parliament privileges recognised, because they've been trying to hide them and undermine the authority and jurisdiction and privilege, because they don't want people to have it. And these main political parties have been taking over, and a lot of them have been breaking the law with election rules, like Reform UK, and Farage has been giving entertainment out. He's been presenting on main channels, which is illegal when you look at the law, right? And then we've got all these issues with the Ancient Liberties of London as well, and now we've got the issues with that. So I didn't just, go willy-nilly on the Scouts thing. I was already using authority and jurisdiction, but seeing as I am a Scout and I am sworn in as a Scout, I thought that I might as well make use of the jurisdiction, seeing that there is one, and I am entitled to use it, right? And when I learned about it, I wrote to the Lady Chief Justice in the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office, and I said to her, I found the Scout Charter, right? Can I use it, right? Because I think I'm going to use it because it's quite useful, right? And she didn't say no, from what I've seen, right? So until they say otherwise, right, I will use it. Now, I'm not going to use the new logo, right? And I'm not going to claim that I am the Scouts Association. And I'm not claiming that the Scouts Association support or advocate that anything I'm doing, right? But the whole point of a Scout, right, is that he's an officer and he's trained and he's licensed with a jurisdiction to help anyone when he comes upon anything, right? And that's when you leave the police college, Ian, when you stop being a squire, when you leave the police college and you become an officer, when you go out into the world and then you learn how to do things. You can't help anyone if you don't have any power. You can't help anyone if you don't have any skills. You can't help anyone unless you have an authority. And until you realise you've got an authority and know you've got an authority and use an authority, right? And that's the difference. Now, the problem I think with these volunteer Scout leaders, right, is that they're doing all the scouting activities, they're getting all the funding, they've got all the framework up there, but they think that that's it. That is the be-all and end-all. It's just there for us. It's just there for us to go out with the kids and go build some radio parts, go do some artwork, go build some bivouacs and have a good time, go on an adventure, right? Go camping. It's just there for us, right? To get our badges. I've got my badge now. Now I've got my art badge. Now I've got my archaeology badge. Now I've got this badge. It's not about you. It's not about the Scouts. It's not about Carl Hankinson. And in fact, they don't even have a head scout anymore. They don't even have a head scout, and they're saying that there's no one in charge. So if there's no proper official head scout anymore, it's only ceremonial head, then no one is in charge. Who is in charge? There isn't actually anyone in charge, right? So it's diminishing, in my opinion, and I don't know what the committee are doing, but they seem... And now they've got more and more ages up to, 25 or whatever with these networking scouts, networking with other countries and after the explorers. But that's not the be-all and end of it. They want to stay on for longer. They want to do more training and they want to learn how to do networking. But for what? That's not the point of its existence, Ian. It doesn't exist so kids can have a ball of a time, right? Going out doing adventuring and learning things and travelling and then networking with other countries and then poof, it's gone, right? That's it. Oh, that was a good time. That's what it was. No, that's not what it was. That is to learn to become what it is for, which is in service to the country after, right? After. All the service that they're doing while they're doing it is learning, like in university, learning how to do it, because until you got your badge, you can't do it, right? So, no matter what charity work they're doing, no matter what, they're learning how to do charity work by helping with charities. Brilliant. They just help raise loads of money for charity. Now you know how to do it, right? But that's not it. So this is the thing. And the whole point of exploring and being an explorer scout is the fact that once you're out there by yourself, you use those skills, but you also act with the authority and jurisdiction. Or you haven't got any authority or jurisdiction. What's the point in being sworn in? You aren't sworn in to school just to learn. A police officer isn't sworn in to go to police college, right? Because there's no point. What does he do when he finishes police college? He's a police officer. That's the thing, right? So this is it. And this is the point in the charter. The charter doesn't exist with a jurisdiction just to train people up. If afterwards it just fizzles out. Because what's the point of having a fully trained person who's now ready to help people whenever anyone's in need around the world if they can't act with any authority or jurisdiction? What's the point being sworn in? And this is the thing where people don't realise what it is they're doing. They don't even realise what they're doing while they're doing it. This is the thing, and this is like realising what your rights are. And Baden-Powell knew all about rights and charters and the Constitution and so forth. So this is the thing, it's not just there for the kids to have a great time when they're young and learning these things. That's only the start of it, right? And the 1688 Bill of Rights, anyone can use, but we've not been granted our proper liberties and rights for that. Now, I didn't contact the Scout group. I realised there was the Charter. I learned about the jurisdiction of the Charter. I am sworn in as a Scout, or I wouldn't have even been interested in it at all, right? Realised that either I got the authority or I don't, right? Now, whether you like it or not, that's not my problem, right? And they wouldn't even give me the information when I asked for it. Anyway, I asked for the information, and then they were going on about all this European information. And I'm like, no, I want my information about me, right, on record, which I'm entitled to. And they won't give me it. So it's like, it's freedom of information. The Freedom of Information Act applies to any government or royal authority of the Crown, which is what the Charter is. You can check it out. It says in section 1 or 3 or 6, I think it is, right? I've just looked at it earlier on today. It clearly states that it's associated with the Crown, right? So it's UK English Freedom of Information Act 2000, right? I can guarantee you that. And they didn't even know that when I rang up and asked, right? And they still haven't got back to me with the information, right? So, where is my information? So until you get the information of that Scout group, you cannot say that I am not sworn in, because I am, right? Because it was across the road from my grandma's house on Waterwide Lane at Zion Baptist, which the building's not there anymore. It wasn't 11th Murfield. I'm pretty sure it was 1st Murfield. I don't think it was. There was a 9th Murfield as well. But there was quite a lot of groups in Mayfield. There was a few. There was at least 4 or 5. But I've got the photograph here. This guy, George King, was the commissioner for our area. So I think that there's one photograph of him. And that's another thing. They were telling me that they can't give me any information about any of the scout leaders, like who I was sworn in with, right? Yet, there are photographs of them all over the internet. There are like the newspaper websites, Yorkshire Live. They're publishing photographs of children, kids, with certificates showing off, telling you who the names are, all these things, right? Yet when you ask for the information, they say they can't give it us, but they're giving it to the newspaper. They're telling the newspaper the name of the scout leaders, the name of the kids, and so forth, right? This is wokeness, Ian, right? This is like Ed Davey, classic Liberal Democrat, Ed Davey, right? Joe Biden, woke, right? You know, let's have all the scouts wearing Girl Guide uniforms, right? Or let's have all the scouts wearing brownies uniforms for like 5 days a week, right? This is like woke yoke, right? This is like, don't even know what you're saying when you're doing it, right? This is like saying, oh, we don't give information out about scout groups, right? Why have they given Yorkshire Live the name of the scout leaders and the kids getting the certificate with the commissioner all over the internet? That means that you don't know what you're saying, right? When you're saying it. You don't know what you're saying when you're saying it. You're just coming out with it. Where's it coming from? It's coming from an Ed Davey, right? Woke attitude. It's coming from an attitude like, oh, we've got all these Euro things and we're not going to tell you anything straight away. I'm not going to tell you anything. Why? Because I'm woke and there's all these weird rules now in wokeness that you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. But you're doing it. You're doing it. Oh, it's the Yorkshire Examiner. There's a load of scouts got sworn in at the weekend and went on an adventure playground. Here's the leader. Here's their name. Here's the commissioner. I'll reel all the kids' names off, right? Oh, excuse me. Can you tell me who my scout leader is? Oh, I can't tell you that. But, well, why have you just told the newspaper editor then the whole information? This, Ian, right, is the intelligence level that I'm dealing with the privileges and rights. It means that you don't know what you're saying and you don't know what it means. It means that you're lying, right, on a principle. On a principle that I am immediately going to disagree with you and not do what you ask me just because I don't want to, or someone's told me like this weird new woke principle that actually is fatally in error in logic, because you just did the complete opposite of it the other day and told the newspaper everything. But you're not going to tell me when I ask for my own information under freedom of information. And that's what they're teaching the Scout headquarters in the email group, because they don't really know what they're actually doing when they're doing it. Ian, they don't know what they're actually doing or saying or what it means, right? And this is like classic Ed Davey. Liberal wokeness, like Joe Biden, which now Donald Trump is having to get rid of. So we are entitled to the information because they're already putting the information out there. So this is it. So until you tell me otherwise, until you actually give me the information and my name's not on the list, right, for my scout group, until proved otherwise, I am sworn in. And I have got the right to use the jurisdiction for the purpose of which it was intended, which is to help people and use the jurisdiction to help people, or you don't have any power to help people, right? That's the point, innit? There's no point in doing it. It's not just there to have a fun weekend, right, making bivouacs. If you don't make the bivouac, if you happen to be out somewhere without shelter and need to build a shelter to protect yourself or to protect someone else who is in need of shelter, right? And this is the attitude with Carl. All I asked, right, I didn't need any help with all of the rights because I'm doing it myself. But when it comes to the ancient site, right, I thought there is an archaeology badge, and in the book that I've got, it actually explicitly says scheduled monuments, right? And I thought, well, just to make sure that I get this monument protected, right, I'll reach out to the scouts and ask them if they'll help me, right? Because that's what they're there for, to help people, right? And Carl's like, no, we're not going to help you. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to help me? The scouts have got an oath to help people. That's the point, right? So, I wasn't impressed with that to start with because it evades the point of the oath. I think Carl just is there to have adventure holidays. That's the whole point in his existence. Oh, we'll have some more adventure holidays, right? This is the thing. But there's only one major scheduled monument in this area. One. Yet there are about 8 or 20 odd scout groups all around it. And to get that archaeology badge, at least by the earlier books, you've got to go and protect your local scheduled monument or go do some protection conservation work on it, right? There are no other scheduled monuments in this area. That means that at least 8 or more scout groups, or probably maybe 28 scout groups, have all got the same scheduled monument to protect, right? Yet Carl doesn't want to help us. So if you've got a protected scheduled monument that was in a certain range of your area, what other scheduled monument are they going to protect, right? And how do you protect it? Well, you can go do some conservation work there, but on this occasion, it needs legal protection, right? And that is what I've done. Utilised the law, learned about the law. How can you protect it? Well, actually, it doesn't take too much because you can invoke guardianship or you can try and get the government to change the law. And actually, what I've written is simply, right, using the existing law as it is to invoke that guardianship, but just with the extra finishing touch of doing it through the scout jurisdiction because it's an authority like the local council. And because the Privy Council is the Privy Council, and because it's a higher jurisdiction than the police force, actually, right? So if I've got it, I might as well use it, Ian, because that's the point, right? And the thing is that another reason why I started doing those writs is this, right? I didn't even know they existed. But when I found the Sheriff of Yorkshire's writ of privilege in Bradford Archives, right, Ian? How it's written is it's a petition to the King. That's what it actually is. All warrants and all summons and summons and warrants are actually the King's writ because they all start with the monarch, right, through the grace of God and the kingdoms and territories, and then after that is what office it is through. So if it's through the Sheriff of Yorkshire or through the Scout Association, right? Now, I have put my writ using the Scout Charter. I have claimed nothing to say that I'm doing it with any consent or any agreement or anything from the Scout College, Training Camp, Squire School, right? As a individual person, right, out and about, right, on the prowl, looking for who I can help, right? Who can I help today, right? As a complete finished model with jurisdiction, right, of the whole world. I could be on a holiday in Morocco, or I could be in New Zealand, right, or I could be on the Antarctic, right? As a complete model, as a graduated student, someone who is finished training camp, finished schooling, right? I'm a grown person now, right? Now either I'm a grown person who's sworn in, or one who isn't sworn in. It's only one of the two, Ian, right? Either I am or I aren't, right? And I am. So I'm going to use that jurisdiction if I need to use it, right, to help protect the monument. Now, when it comes to the logos, right, I'm not putting the new Modern Scout logo on there. Firstly, it's naff. I don't like it. It looks rubbish. Whoever designed it needs sacking. It's crap, right? It's the worst logo I've ever seen in my entire life, right? The original logo actually is the same shape as the scheduled monument that we're trying to protect. So that's the reason why I use that one, because it's more fitting to it, and that seal, the stamp of with the Royal Charter on it, lets people know what law it is being used through, right? And that logo has never even had a schedule on it. I've looked through the website, right? And that stamp doesn't have a patent logo registered with government on it for the stamp, because it's just to show the seal and the charter, right? And in fact, the be prepared part doesn't even appear on the website on the government either, right? And actually, if you're saying that that particular exact logo is not valid anymore, and if it's run out of copyright, and if it's run out of, if it's not being refreshed, if it's not being resubmitted, which I haven't actually found that exact one on there, then you can't say that I'm using your logo, because it's not even registered properly anymore, so I can't be misusing it. It means that anyone can use it, right? It means that anyone can use that logo because you haven't currently got it re-registered. And in fact, all those other ones that have been re-registered, they're from scout groups all around. And if it's a global jurisdiction, then they can, what is the networking part for? You can work with any organisation, right? So that's the whole point. So that logo, right, is contemporary with me, right? It's contemporary with me and me being sworn in. So it identifies my initiation period, not the new modern one. So it is unique to me and my service from that. And to be honest, I don't need the logo on there, because it's the King's writ with me signing it as me with my authority in writing. I don't need the logo on there. It was just a nice touch to put on there, but the stamp with the Royal Charter thing on it reminds people who are receiving it that it actually, I'm invoking a law which I've got the right to invoke. It doesn't matter whether it's supported or backed by the Scout Association themselves or not, because apparently they don't even have a leader anymore. There isn't a leader, right? So that's the whole point. So, and, you know, Scouts are for training. Scouts is college. Cubs and Scouts is learning in college, right? It's not actually going out and using it when people need help, right? Now, all I did was ask for some help, because just to make sure that I get the site protected. Now, if Carl does not want to support it, then I don't know who does. Because if you've got 8 or 9 scout groups around a scheduled monument, what scheduled monument are they going to protect? If that's the only one, that's the thing, right? So I'm disappointed, deeply disappointed about it. And the fact that, you know, I've got a lot of nice memories when I did go to Scouts in Murfield, opposite my grandma's house, and the fact that we've got a big scout camp in the woods opposite us now, and signs directly at the bottom of my drive, even if I don't go to scouts anymore, is the fact that, I learned something. I actually learned that I am actually sworn in on something, and there is an actual charter that exists with a jurisdiction. So why not use it? So that's effectively it, right? I don't go and do something if I don't actually know what I'm doing properly, or if I'm not messing around with it, right? I couldn't be more serious. Parliament, right, don't even know what they're doing. I'm having to correct all of Parliament, right, for undermining everyone's rights. Ian, right, there are people in prison. There are people being arrested for protesting illegally, right? So, and, the fact is that under that charter, I've complained that they give false information to me about the freedom of information of the Scouts. Yet, I can't prosecute the Scout group for fraud because you're under the charter. So you're using the jurisdiction, which is why I have to complain to the Lady Chief Justice at the Privy Council, because no one can take the Scouts to court. People can't prosecute the Scouts in the court because of the jurisdiction of the charter, which applies to the training and to Scouts and to sworn Scouts. It's not just for police college, Ian. It's for sworn Scouts. It's our charter. It's not just for training camp. And this is the thing. So I'm complaining to the Lady Chief Justice, right? Because I don't think that you understand the law properly. And I don't think that your pro bono understands the law properly, because they've not been doing it properly with Parliament. So it couldn't be more serious. It is serious. It is serious, Ian. It could not be more serious.